begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the magic's within. Unlock the words, let the stories unfold. In a world of letters, watch the wonders take hold. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Every sound, every line brings us closer to turning our learners into super prosers. Phonics and fun, on a journey we'll lead. With every Tuesday, we plant another seed. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Step by step, we'll find our way. Through every challenge, come what may. In our group, you're never alone. Together we'll turn this skill into a stone. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll read, together we'll rise, together we'll rise. Teaching Tuesdays, the skies.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Dreamers, parents, educators, you name it. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of Teaching Tuesdays. I am checking my screen, my other device, to make sure you all can see me. Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you for tuning in. I feel like I have not been live with you all for quite some time for Teaching Tuesdays. So I am so very excited to be with you all today. I will tell you that I got in about midnight last night from out of the country, and I was struggling to determine, like, was I going to go live today? Was I going to just wait? And I will say thank you to the campaign for grade level reading. I attended a virtual workshop with them today, and it was phenomenal. And I was like, there is no way I'm not doing Teaching Tuesdays this evening. So our streak continues, 46 weeks together for Teaching Tuesdays right here inside the Literacy the Dreams Way Facebook group, formerly known as Reading the Phonics Way. I am so excited for those of you that may be tuning in for the first time or just now being introduced to my work and the work of Dreams KC. We are an education nonprofit located here in Kansas City, Missouri, where we empower parents with the tools they need to teach their children foundational literacy skills. For 2025, we have been very intentional in addressing our adolescent literacy learners. You may say, oh, just teenagers? No, not at all. That's upper elementary, that's middle school, and that's high school in the world of education. So I wanted to welcome you all in, let you know what our focus is for 2025. However, that does not mean that if you have a child, a grandchild, a student, anyone that is in the lower grades, right, pre-K on, that you shouldn't be joining us, because as I always say, and I will continue to reiterate, is that the skills are the skills. They do not change. What changes is our methods and the materials and supplies that we use to teach the learners and meet them where they are. So we may use different types of texts and activities, games, etc., to support our older learners with those foundational skills, if in fact that is where their gaps exist or they're having challenges. So again, welcome. Thank you all for joining me. I'm so excited that you are here, and we're going to deviate just a little bit this week, and I may either go live and do a special edition, of Teaching Tuesdays. Well, I guess it won't be Teaching Tuesday if I do it on a different day, but we're going to be talking about two important things that are happening in the area of education that I think is really important for you all to be aware of. One of those things is the fact that NAEP scores just came out, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And then we also need to talk about the fact that our current governmental administration is talking about dismantling, defunding the Department of Education. And for many educators, parents, tutors, etc., people have a lot of questions. They may have some fear, some anxiety, even our children. What does that mean for me, the child that goes to school each and every day? So I wanted to kind of put a pin in our literacy sessions and really discuss these two important things that have happened so that you understand what it means for you and your children or grandchildren or students, what it means for them, right? And what things you can do to be an advocate, to make sure you understand what's actually happening and you are clear on facts versus fiction. That is one thing that I am really, really keen on, is to ensure that parents, the first and most important teachers of their children, have the relevant, that have the accurate information so that they can be advocates for their children, for themselves, for their communities, etc. So tonight we are going to, and let me go ahead and share my screen because I put a lot in this, y'all, for tonight. So let me see. Make sure we get there. All right, I'm waiting for my other device to catch up so that I can see what you see to ensure that you are seeing exactly what's on the screen. I want to make sure that it is clear and all the things. So give me a moment. There's like a 30-second delay in what I'm seeing on my end and what I'm doing, and then what you all are seeing on your end. So that's why I always have multiple devices, because I want to make sure that you all are seeing, you're hearing, you're experiencing Teaching Tuesdays in the way that's going to be best for you. Please feel free to drop down any questions, any comments, concerns you might have in the comment section. I can see those. I can respond to those. If you know of an education professional, if you know of a parent, a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt, a sibling, some person, some adult that is supporting children on their literacy journey, feel free to invite them to come on in the room with us so that we can all learn together. All right. So I want to make sure that it is big. You all can see it, because it's more important that you see the slides and get the information versus seeing me. I'm not that important. You are, and I want to make sure you get this information. Remember that these videos live right here inside our private Facebook group, and they will be here until we transition over to YouTube, which we will be shortly. So very excited to embrace that new platform for all of us. But you can screenshot, you can take notes, you can come back and watch these Teaching Tuesday segments as much and as often as you need to make sure that you are clear, you have the information needed so that you can build confident and competent readers. So that being said, looks like our screen is good to go. Also, it's February. Happy Black History Month. Every year, Black History Month has a theme. Regardless of what people say and what's happening in our governmental structures, we can't be erased. We are here. And I would encourage us to honor one another first and foremost, to continue to tell stories, share stories, get books from the library, purchase books from bookstores, and tell the stories of the rich history that exists for African American men, women, and children in this country, because Black history is American history. The theme for this year is African Americans in labor. And I love that because this is a great opportunity for you to find books about Black inventors, Black explorers, Black people in the workforce, items that we use and have in our everyday life that had it not been for Black people or African American people, it would be problematic for us, right? So you think about the street lights, street lights. You think about the iron, right? You think about actually the internet. There are some engineers that were of African descent who put together the technology so that we have the World Wide Web as we know it today, and so many other inventors, discoverers, explorers, both men, women, and children. So I encourage you throughout this month of Black History Month to celebrate big, and to encourage your children to find books about things that interest them and the Black people that contributed to that particular industry, or labor workforce. That being said, let's keep it going. Again, this is episode 46 of Teaching Tuesdays. I'm so excited to have you all here. This is a special edition, and we're going to be talking about understanding NAEP, the Nation's Report Card. So sometimes you may have heard some CNN reports or Fox News reports, or heard it on NPR. People are talking about NAEP scores that just came out. You may hear people refer to it as the Nation's Report Card. And that's exactly what it is. NAEP stands for the National Assessment of Educational Progress, and it measures student achievement across the United States. That's what it is. So they don't drill down and give us information about individual students. It really is a report card about where we are as a nation, as a country, as it relates to education. So we're going to dig into this tonight so that you really, really get the information on the literacy trends. I will tell you that they test both math and reading. But of course, we focused on literacy here at Dreams KC. So that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. Okay. All right. So I want to give you all some background, some information. So 100 years prior to 1963, right? 100 years prior, the Department of Education was put into place by Congress. It was funded by some very wealthy businessmen and women, or businessmen back then. And at the time, well, I'm not going to go into that much detail in the history. Just know that 100 years prior to 1963, the Department of Education was formed. Okay, that's where we're going to leave it right there. In 1963, however, what happened was that the Commissioner of Education really needed to figure out a way to make sure the intent, the congressional intent, was adhered to. And so he needed to explore some options for tracking the educational progress of students across the United States. So in 1969, the NAEP was administered for the first time, becoming the nation's report card. And today, and it has evolved over time, and today it continues to measure and report on U.S. students' knowledge and capabilities, as I said before, in reading and in math. Fourth graders, eighth graders every 2 years are assessed, and 12th graders every 4 years are assessed. So that's really the NAEP's origins and purpose. So I wanted you all to have some of that historical background so that you understand, as you're hearing all of these news reports, you're reading newspaper articles, people are talking about these NAEP scores, you understand what that means for you and your children, what that means for the United States, what that means for your individual state, etc. So the key reasons for the creation is that we needed a way to track in detail information on educational outcomes beyond the quantitative metrics. And when students are assessed, They also get a survey at the end of the NAEP that actually asks them about qualitative information. Are they interested in reading? Now, remember, I'm just focusing on the literacy part tonight. So, are they interested? How many books do they have? Things of that nature. So that not only do we have this quantitative assessment, but we also have a qualitative assessment. It is the national yardstick, right? So we have continuity, a national representative measure of academic achievement trends, so we can see where we have been over the last decade. Now, mind you, this NAEP is 56 years old, 2025. Okay, it's 56 years old. So we can look at math and reading data for the last 56 years. We can think about what has gone on in terms of, was it the depression? Was it COVID happening? What was going on? What was contributing or impacting perhaps the academic performance of students? Was there a new nationwide trend in literacy? We know that there have been some things happening. We can look at state and compare it to another state and things of that nature. So we have this national yardstick to really look at the academic performance, both qualitative and quantitative, of our students. And it really is a great way for educators, policymakers, researchers, tutors, parents to assess progress and hopefully, as a system, improve education for all of our children. Now, that doesn't always happen. That would be the goal. If we're informed, we know better, we should be able to do better. And so, just wanted to point out those key reasons for NAEP's creation. So, it used to assess a wide range of outcomes, including physical fitness, citizenship, etc. Currently, again, as I stated, we look at reading, we look at math. There are some other academic areas that we look at, but they are assessed less frequently, just so you know that. And again, we look at those pure academic while maintaining this core purpose of showing trends across time. So when we think about the National Assessment of Educational Progress here in the United States, it all sits under the umbrella of the Department of Education. And then you have two additional agencies within the Department of Ed that work on NAEP. So you have the National Center for Education Statistics. So they develop, administer, and report the results. And again, it is a part of the Institute of Education Sciences, which is under the umbrella of the U.S. Department of Ed. I know it's a lot of layers, too many for my taste, but it is what it is. And then we have the National Assessment Governing Board. They are independent, they are bipartisan, they are appointed, not elected, by the Secretary of Education. So, who sits in that seat is extremely important because those are the individuals, they get appointed by the Secretary of Education. They also set the assessment schedule and they set achievement levels. Okay. So again, just want you to know the scope and the evolution of NAEP. Since we are hearing so much about it, we have for several years now, especially since COVID. We're really taking a deep dive and looking more at NAEP scores. And I believe it also has a lot to do with No Child Left Behind, the ESSER funds coming out of COVID, trying to track the impact that a global pandemic had. But one thing I will say, and it's clear, and you can look at the numbers prior to the pandemic, and you'll see this on one of my slides, we were already struggling in the area of literacy and in some areas of math as well. And so the pandemic only exacerbated what was already happening, and we have yet to catch up or to see the gains that we thought we might see with the increase in funding for recovery and remediation. So let's be clear about that. All right. So What does NAEP measure in reading? Two core areas, which is the literary reading skills. Can students comprehend, make meaning of fiction, poetry, and drama? And can they read and understand nonfiction text, arguments, factual content? So that's what we look at. We are looking at comprehension skills of our fourth graders, our eighth graders, our 12th graders. Why are we looking at comprehension? Well, remember, that's the ultimate goal of reading. So if they have mastered those foundational literacy skills, then they should be less focused on decoding new and unfamiliar words, and they are more focused on now, especially at fourth grade and eighth grade, right? That making meaning, understanding, comprehending the text. So they are shifting from learning how to read to reading to learn more. So that's what NAEP measures when it comes to literacy and reading. So they have three basic levels, and you've probably heard of these because when we look at the NWEA map, when we look at our ready scores, things of that nature, you often will see them couched in this way. So we have, usually you may hear below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced. For the NAEP, we have basic, meaning partial mastery of fundamental skills, proficient, meaning the students are competent in challenging material, and then advanced, our highest readers that are able to not only read, decode, but they are also able to make meaning from the text. So these are the achievement levels that NAEP has. They are very different. Do not confuse them with what your school district, or state does. The meanings are totally different, which makes it more confusing. And I am a huge advocate with doing away with below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced, because what we say these things mean are not consistent. And so for a parent, that is very confusing for them as it relates to their individual children, their school districts, and even when we think about our national progress, because the meanings are different. Now, if we were all using mastery, hello, we would have a better understanding, because we all know that a student could independently demonstrate their understanding of skills with 90% accuracy. Like, it would be the same. And if they cannot demonstrate mastery, then they are not competent in that particular skill. We don't have to, it's not rocket science. We don't have to make it more difficult than it has to be. But for right now, this is what we have in our system. So I want you to understand and be aware of what we are talking about. Okay. All right. So who participates? Are all students across the country taking the NAEP? No, not at all. Students that schools and school districts that receive Title I funding, they definitely are mandated to participate. So generally that is schools and school districts that have high levels of free and reduced lunch students. So we're talking about those on the lower socioeconomic scale. And generally speaking, I don't believe there's any provision in the legislation that allows schools to opt in or opt out. So just understand that. So they are randomly selected. Schools and students are randomly selected. There is supposed to be a diverse representative sample from across the country. And again, it is mandatory. Schools cannot opt in or opt out. And there should be enough of a sample size for researchers to then look at this data and draw conclusions as it relates to all of our students. That's how research is done, good, bad, or indifferent. That's what happens. So just want you to know that that's kind of how NAEP is administered, okay? All right. So we have these latest results, understanding that these results represent 2024. And what do these results tell us? Now, you've probably heard news reports on NPR, CNN, MSNBC, social media, you name it. is talking about them. Now, I will tell you, I was not surprised because you can look at data and you can see trends. And if you are engrossed in your particular industry, you see when things are changing for the good or the bad. So none of these results were shocking or surprising for me. And again, like I said, I was on with educators and education professionals and researchers and policymakers earlier today, journalists as well. It was a really, really good sample of people from across the country coming together to discuss this. And the majority of us were not surprised. Okay, so just understand and know we weren't. So what is these NAEP results in terms of reading and literacy tell us? Since 2019, pre-pandemic, scores have continued to decrease. And although our government gave a lot of money, billions of dollars, to ensure that people stayed safe during the pandemic, that we could open back schools and hopefully have some learning games where there were decreases, that just hasn't happened. There has not been any post-pandemic recovery in the way in which we were hoping, especially with such a significant monetary investment. I'll talk to y'all about that in a minute. Lowest performing students are still the lowest performing students. Bottom line, their gaps have gotten wider. They have fallen further behind. And here's another thing that is really, really important that we point out, or that I want to point out. Our students who are pre-K through second grade, so if they're in second grade now, they would have been kindergarten, or no, they wouldn't even been in school yet when pandemic happened. 2021, yeah, no. So something has occurred even in the early childhood space, in the pre-reading stages, that these students are still struggling. They're struggling even more. Now remember, NAEP tests 4th grade and 8th grade. Just FYI. So our 4th graders were in 2025. So in 2020, they would have been 1st grade, 2nd grade, learning how to read. That just didn't happen. And so now they are adolescent learners. Hello. To my point about spending 2025 talking about adolescent learners, they are adolescent learners, literacy learners, and they need some additional support. We cannot focus all of our energy with our early literacy learners, right? Our pre-Kers, kindergarten, all the way up to 3rd grade, and think that those beyond don't need additional support. And you're going to see some numbers here in a minute, baby. It's going to blow your mind. But I just want to make sure that we are all clear. The gaps for those students that were already struggling or having some challenges, it has gotten wider. And low-income families, Black families, Hispanic families have shown more gaps and challenges. They have been more impacted, which we all know this. This is, again, it's not new information, but the numbers bear it out. So we always want to talk about being data-driven and looking at the research. Well, here it is. What are we going to do about it? Because it's been consistent for quite some time. All right, so let's keep it moving. So here we go with the actual numbers, right? I wanted to make sure I could have gave you a lot of data. Bottom line is this: 1 in 3 4th graders and 1 in 3 8th graders are reading proficiently. That means 1/3, right? 1/3 of our students are proficient, while 2/3 are not. That's a problem. The majority of our students in 4th grade and 8th grade are reading below grade level, or they certainly have comprehension levels to let you know that they are not able to make meaning from fiction and or nonfiction texts that they encounter. What we know to be true about the brain and how we learn to read is if we have gaps in our foundational literacy skills, then we can't get to comprehension. Think about Scarborough's reading rope. I've shared it with you all on more than one occasion. You can go back and look at tons of videos where I've talked about it. We have the top part of the rope, we have the bottom part of the rope, and for both the top and the bottom, we have multiple strands that tie it together to get us to comprehension. If there are any gaps in any of those spaces, we don't get to comprehension. And so we can draw conclusions that the students in 4th grade and 8th grade are adolescent learners, right? If 2/3 of them are struggling with comprehension, it directly relates to perhaps one or more of the sections of our Scarborough's reading rope. Some of those foundational skills is what I'm saying. When we think about Tolman's hourglass figure, where are they? Now, remember, the NAEP doesn't give us that. They don't drill down to the individual student. They're looking at trends across the country. But we as education professionals, as parents, right, people that have common sense, and you all that have been with me for a really long time, you know the research behind it. You know the evidence, how we're building these neural pathways. It only makes sense that some of those foundational skills for our children are lacking, and that's why they're not at comprehension. Just that simple. Okay. So thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I see y'all. Hey. Drop any questions, comments, concerns in the chat. I can see it. Let me know if you have any questions. So what NAEP doesn't tell us, to my point I just made, it doesn't assess the individual student. It only looks at broad nationwide trends. It doesn't tell us why the scores have changed or track specific educational interventions. So we have a lot of states that are shifting from whole language balanced literacy, right, over to the science of reading and structured literacy. We can see some states are doing better than others. What we can't do based off this information from the NAEP is to determine which reform measures that they're putting in place are actually contributing to the growth for their particular students. And because our states control education, they have different policies, they serve different demographics of children, all of these things, we don't necessarily know because we don't have a standardized system of education in this country. Whole nother thing that I could get on the soapbox about. But so we are not quite clear, and we can't always compare state to state. We can compare the numbers, the outcomes, and say this state is doing better. But as to the why one state is doing better than another, we just don't know. So I want you to be clear on what the NAEP tells you, what it doesn't tell you, what assumptions we can make, and things of that nature. The thing that I just mentioned about not having a standardized national approach to education, I say that and I go, oh, I take a deep breath, because what I have seen for the last 25 years, when we look at countries that are blowing us out of the water in terms of literacy, or education really as a whole, but specifically I always focus in on literacy, they do have a nationwide standard. Success leaves clues, breadcrumbs. And if these countries are outperforming us, might we take a look at what they're doing? Just saying. All right, so let's keep it moving, y'all. So why should you care? Why are we spending time talking about the NAEP? Why did I interrupt our regularly scheduled programming to make sure I brought this information to you? Is because adolescent readers are facing more challenges than ever before. We know, the research tells us, the NAEP confirms it, that when you start out as a younger child, so remember those kiddos that went through the pandemic, etc., they started out with gaps. Those gaps have only become more pronounced over time. Hence, we have 4th graders and 8th graders that 1/3, 2/3 not proficient. Bottom line, they are our adolescent readers, our adolescent literacy learners. This is a long-term impact. We know this, that poor literacy skills affect their entire life and their academic performance in other content areas. They get isolated, they get angry, they act out, they start having more absences. Like, there are a lot of things that we can tie directly back to the challenges with literacy. So it can have a significant long-term impact on our students. And of course, these gaps are widening, especially between Black children and their white counterparts, poor children and their higher socioeconomic status families. So it is strong, it's increasing, and we don't yet, and I say we, right? So the system has not yet acknowledged that our system is broken. This is the only industry that consistently survives, but we're not yielding the outcomes that we want. And that's why I'm struggling and challenged as we talk about dismantling the Department of Education and defunding it. On the one hand, I understand and I know what that means for communities and neighborhoods and families. On the flip side of that, though, if it's not yielding the results for our students, like, it's a lot to contemplate. And so I'll leave it right there. I'll leave it right there because we're going to talk more about that for sure. So what is the role of families as we look at this data? We know that it is staying consistent or getting worse for some students. I believe wholeheartedly, I say this to you all the time, that parents are the first and most important educators of their own children. You cannot phone it in. You cannot hand it off. No one is going to love and be concerned about your children more than you. Period. I wish, and I say this all the time too, that we could say that the schools, the school districts, the individual classroom teachers, and there are some great ones out there, could get the job done for all children. But again, the data tells us that that is not the case. Home support is going to be key. We have to be collaborative partners, advocates for our own children. We have to take the bull by the horns and get done, in some instances, what they just can't. No shade. It's not personal. It just is. Families are critical to the solution. You have to create environments, model for them, practice with them, assess them, talk to the educators that are responsible for guiding them along their educational journey. Daily reading. Not just you reading to them, or you listening to them read, so that you get a clue into where their struggles are. Are you reading so that you're modeling to them, this is it. And when I say reading, it could be an audiobook, right? It could be choral reading. We're reading together at the same time. It could be, I love those books. You read to me, I read to you. It can be independent reading as well. They can be getting read too. But it should be all of those things. All of them are needed and necessary, not one or the other, all of them. And then you want to make sure that you keep coming to Teaching Tuesdays, or you come to our in-person Dreams KC classes, because you'll then get structured strategies. You'll learn where your individual child or children have some gaps or some challenges, and you get strategies to assist them with mastering those skills so that they don't continue to struggle, that the gap doesn't widen for them. So I want you to understand, like, all of these things are necessary. You can't pick and choose. They're all required to ensure that our children become confident and competent readers. All right. So what can you do? You got to talk to your teachers. You got to talk to the tutors, the reading interventionists, the administrators, whomever is responsible for ensuring, guiding, supporting their literacy journey. It has to be communication. It has to be collaborative. Use supportive materials, decodable books, audio books, all the things, the Teaching Tuesday set out opportunities, going to tutoring when it's free in your community, or coming to a parent training class so you learn more what to do with your children at home. And you have to prioritize. You have to. It's like, no question. We prioritize our favorite, reality TV. I watched some today. Lord help me. My guilty pleasure. But I'm also prioritizing the literacy journey of my grandchildren. I'm sitting here right next to me. I just bought some books. Right? So I'm going to ensure that they continue to get the practice that they need to be confident and competent readers. All right? All right, let's keep it going. So part 2, engage, talk to them. What do they want to learn about? What do they think about as they read, before, during, and after reading? Encourage them to think deeply, critical thinking, solve problems, be creative in their problem solving. All of those things are life skills that they'll need, not just for literacy, but period, in the 21st century. Those are skills that they can take into the workforce, into entrepreneurship, into a trade or technical career, you name it. So we need to be having real conversations, especially with these adolescent learners. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? How are you growing? All the things. And we need to be advocates for literacy in our own schools, our neighborhoods, our community. We have to. I would like, again, a lot of people say throw more money. What I have known philanthropic folks to say is no matter how much money they have thrown at the issue, that has not closed the literacy gap. I spoke earlier and said success leaves breadcrumbs, clues, right? And I think about the African American community right after the Emancipation Proclamation with nothing and a near zero literacy rate. And they were able, of their own fortitude, were able to grow that literacy rate in a very short amount of time to almost 70%. Don't tell me what we can't do in this day and age with all of the resources and all of the money at our fingertips. The question becomes, do we have the will to do it? Will we do what's in the best interest of children? Will we sacrifice and inconvenience ourselves to ensure that our children are confident and competent readers? Do we have the will to do it? Right? All right. So again, one of the things I wanted you to understand also, when we talk about proficient, a lot of families will think, oh, well, if my child is proficient, and it makes sense to think this way, then that means they're on grade level. No. For NAEP, that does not mean grade level. And I pointed out what it means. State assessments define grade level expectations differently. So if you want to know whether or not your child is on grade level, and I even hate that term too, then you want to look more at those iReady, those NWEA MAP results, whatever it is that happens in your school district, the assessments they provide, how they define what grade level is. Now, I will tell you what I've pointed out in many of our Teaching Tuesdays, what it means for particular students at particular grade points in their ages. They, in my opinion, those are guidelines, right? Because every child is different. Every child is not going to be at the same place at the same time. They're just not. And a lot of contributing factors go into that. So take it with a grain of salt when people talk about grade level expectations and what they should be doing at a particular age or stage. They are guidelines. So if your child is not at that, okay, we're going to do more practice. They need more time. That's okay. We're going to still celebrate their wins, support them when they have some challenges or some gaps, and we're moving them toward mastery. Okay? All right. So again, remember that the NAEP is administered to students across all 50 states and DC. They select urban districts, rural districts, suburban districts, you name it. There are no individual scores. That's not what they do with this particular assessment. They really look at a broad national picture, a trend for the nation based on these scores. Okay. So, and I think we kind of went through the history already, but you notice this one starts at 1867. So that's when the Office of Education, the law authorized the Office of Education to report on U.S. student progress. And it took 100 years for us to even get there. Whew! 100 years to get there, just to explore the options and then administer. So from 1867 to 1969, we couldn't even get that right. What, Lord, forgive me. You all, I am who I am. If it took 100 years for that, well, we maybe 50 more years we'll get education right as a whole. I don't know. But are you willing to wait? I'm not. Not at all. So, of course, we've talked about this. So, initially, it was broad, talked about a lot of different things. It refined over time. And again, now we do reading and math. We do some other subject areas, but not on a consistent basis. Remember that fourth graders and eighth graders are assessed every 2 years. 12th graders, generally, it's every 4 years that we have data on how they're doing. So we've talked about all these things. I do like the fact that you can look at subgroups with the NAEP. So you can look at gender groups, you can look at age groups, you can look at race and ethnicity and things like that and start comparing some of those subgroups. What should be happening is that we should be looking at policy when we look at these trends over time to figure out what we're doing well or not so well at the state and national levels, and implementing policy to drive education, not necessarily what's happening. We should be using the data to do that. I don't know. And please understand and know, don't feed off of me and think I'm like hopeless. I'm not optimistic. I would not be doing this work if I was not. What I am in my background, so before I was in education, I was in law, right? I deal with facts. I deal with, facts versus fiction. And so when I look at the facts of the matter, it's like, ugh. But I also am a strategic and analytical thinker and creative thinker, I think. And so, I know. And so I'm often like, why are we making it so hard when we don't have to? So I'm still optimistic. I still believe in parents more than anything. And I believe in our children even more. I know that they can get what they need. They can master these skills. They can become confident and competent readers if we as adults move out of the way and do the right damn thing. Bottom line. So I don't want you all to think, oh my God, it's such a doom and gloom picture. No, it's not. I promise it is not. Okay. But we do have to make up our minds that this is what we want for our kids and for future generations, right? So the call to action is you understand the NAEP. That's why I took time out for this Teaching Tuesday to ensure that I gave you all the information in a very basic way. Then you can take action. First and foremost for your own children and others at your church, in your community, what have you. Advocate for strong literacy programs. I say that all the time. Ask questions, push back. You are sending your children to schools and school districts every single day. Your most precious, I say possession. I don't want to say that because, they're not our possession per se, but you know what I mean. These are our babies. If you're a mommy, you gave birth, the fruit of your loins, and you're sending them into these spaces. You should be able to advocate that they get what they need so that they can thrive, not just here and now, but in the future. So we have to take action, and then we have to make a full commitment, right? So join the effort to improve adolescent literacy, but all literacy really. And the reason why I'm saying adolescent literacy is because, again, remember the NAEP, it tests our fourth and our 8th graders. Those are our adolescent literacy learners. So we want to make sure that we are not leaving them behind as we restructure literacy, instruction, education, etc. as a whole. No, we can't just focus on, oh, well, those kids didn't get it by the time they're in 4th grade. Whatever happens to them happens to them. Oh, heck no. They're people. They're members of our society and community. They have value. They have something to contribute. How dare we say, oh, well, you didn't get it? What? Out of order. Unacceptable. Not having it. Not on my watch. So that's just, my soapbox. I'm sorry, y'all. And so that's really what I wanted to talk to you all about this evening. For those of you that just jumped on, hey, Shapri. I kind of deviated from our normal, scheduled programming, and I really wanted to cover NAEP because a lot of people are talking about it. Parents may not understand it. So I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of what NAEP is, what it tells us, what it doesn't tell us, how we use the data, what students are being assessed, that it is a national assessment. It is qualitative more than quantitative. But then where when they use this sample representative, what does it tell us? And right now, what we know is 1/3 of our 4th graders and 1/3 of our 8th graders are reading proficiently as to their definition, which means 2/3 of our 4th graders and 8th graders absolutely are not. And we have seen this consistent trend pre-pandemic, and it's only gotten worse over time. So next week, what we'll talk about, and maybe not even next week, I feel like this is so pressing that I may have to just do a special live, maybe tomorrow, is I'm sure you all have heard it. We have a new administration here in the United States. Our new president is looking at doing some executive orders to defund, lay off folks that are in the Department of Education, essentially attacking it in such a way that what people think is that the Department of Ed can be dismantled completely. That has raised eyebrows, that has raised levels of anxiety and fear for parents, for families, for children, for educators and education professionals all across this country. What does this mean? How will it impact me and my children? So I think this is such a pressing issue that I wanted to put something together to talk about what the administration can and cannot do, because a lot of this is steeped in fear. There is no fundamental basis. I don't care what executive order is signed. It cannot happen. Also, y'all know my undergrad degree is in political science too, right? I know, right? So I've also put together a primer that I've sent out to district level folks. And I think I'll restructure it for parents also to talk about if the end goal, which it seems to be, is to dismantle the Department of Ed, what it would take, how long it would take, what would need to happen. But I don't want you all to be in fear. I don't want your anxiety levels to be up. I want you to be informed. And so that's why I think these two things, the NAEP scores that just were released and what these executive orders may mean for the Department of Ed and your children, your schools, your school districts, what all that means. I think it is imperative enough that we have conversation about that. And again, I always want to make sure that you all are armed and aware. So I think I'll go live tomorrow at some point. Tomorrow's Wednesday. We'll figure that out. I will. And remember that once I go live, it's there. So you all can access it at any time if you miss it when I go live. But that's what we're doing next. And then, barring some other issue that we need to address, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming where we'll be giving you tips, tools, strategies to make sure your adolescent learners are becoming confident and competent readers. Also, we took a break over the holidays and the new year. I continue my partnership with the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center. In-person classes resume on next Monday. For the last 12 days, I've been out of town, y'all. I went to Dallas for a week. I was in Chicago, and then I went out of the country. I just got back last week. So I've had a lot going on. So we are resuming our classes. If you haven't enrolled yet, feel free to enroll. Scan that QR code. We'll be there on Mondays. We'll be there on Saturdays. We start on Mondays at 6, on Saturdays at 10:30. We do an hour and a half. If you are concerned about childcare or where will your children be at the same time, they can come too. And they will be working with certified staff on site while you are in your parent training class. So you all are more than welcome. I'm excited to have you. Please come. All right. Also, we have Black Children's Book Week. I should have brought my t-shirt. I ordered my t-shirt. It came in. So from February 23rd to March 1st, basically the last full week of the month, going into March, we have Black Children's Book Week. This is not new. This is a nationwide movement. It is amazing. An African-American woman launched this endeavor, and she brings Black authors, Black bookstores, educators, you name it, together to celebrate Black Children's Book Week. And so how can you participate? Well, go to their website. There are 1,000,001 ways to do that. If you know, a lot of things have already been pre-planned. There's an actual event calendar on the website. They have a virtual Black Children's Book Museum. It launches. They have the grand opening on February 22nd. It's virtual. It's a virtual, right? Virtual Black Children's Book Museum, which is amazing. You can buy books from Black authors, books you probably haven't heard of before, or they may be new. So it's a very exciting time during this. Always a lot going on in February, I feel like. But if you go to any events, if you are reading to your children, if you're buying new books by Black folks, featuring Black folks, all the things during this week, it's a great opportunity to highlight and tag Black Children's Book Week. Order a t-shirt, wear your t-shirts that week. You can go to their website and order them. They get them out pretty quickly. Get them for every child in your life and yourself as well. Just show that we support literacy in our communities, in our homes, in our schools, etc. So just wanted to let you all know that. Also, last but certainly not least, Storytime with Mama V is a national podcast. You can get it on YouTube, you can get it on Instagram, and you can go to oh gosh, this is terrible. I should be able to tell you. If you just Google it, you'll find it. I'll tell you that. You will. Buzzsprout. That's what it is. Buzzsprout. And what Mama V does is she selects books from all over the country, and she actually reads them aloud. She puts music behind them and all the things. So Kyla Meets the Bees, published by moi, authored by moi, was one of her chosen books. And so it was just released today on her podcast. It is an amazing, oh my God. Get the little ones together and listen to Kyla Meets the Bee. Share with other folks. It is so cool to hear this work come to life in this way. It's amazing. So I encourage you all to check Storytime with Mama V out on Instagram, on YouTube, or on Buzzsprout. Okay? That's all I got. That's all I wanted to say. That's what I wanted to share. You all know that, as I always say, until next time, let's get lit, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I so appreciate you all. And have a great night. Bye. So glad I could be with you all live.
Oh, welcome in. Grab a seat. Let's begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the magic's within. Unlock the words, let the stories unfold. In a world of letters, watch the wonders take hold. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, your